going to happen until it happens. So the goal is to kind of let you know what I went through, and you can plan what you want to do from there. And, don't forget, there's a trailer out there. The rain's not helping. Oddly, solar trailer, and it's raining. But the solar generator I'm going to talk about is inside the trailer. There's lights. There's a refrigerator in there. And so you can put that in a camping RV, an actual RV, and all that stuff's in this Prezzo. But if you want to take a look at it, if it's not raining afterwards, please do. So, first off, what is supplemental solar? That means it doesn't run my whole house. My house hits the wrong way. South is over here, which is where you want your roof to sit. And my house hits this way, and I got a bunch of legacy oak trees. I can't put a lot of panels on my roof and get any decent solar. So I said, well, I can power some of it. And so that's what supplemental solar is. Partially powering something in your home with solar power. So I already had a 3,000 watt solar generator. It's in that trailer. And I also had a 3,000 watt inverter, it's in the Prezzo later, that I had in my garage, which is now in my workshop where I'm at now, which we'll talk about. So I had some of the parts, but I needed to then transfer them from one house to another and make the house more livable in the event of an outage like a snowmageddon, which is what I was planning for, not a tornado. And then also it reduces some of your electricity bill, so that's always a good thing. And then have some power somewhere in the house in the event of an outage, which my workshop came in real handy when the tornado hit, oddly enough. And then I ended up getting a solar tracker. Instead of putting them on the roof, we'll see pictures of it, but this thing actually will track the sun during the day. It's very efficient, takes up not a whole lot of space. The front gate's going off.
Silence your phone.
Well, it is, but it overrides it. Yeah. It overrides it. And so these trackers are really efficient, and so I don't have to put them on the roof. You'll see pictures of them in the Prezzo. And so all that came together, and then some of the things I experienced in the tornado. So here's the tornado path of what they published, and if you follow the line, you can see right where we live. So we live right where that X is, and they live right behind us. And so we got the full brunt of the tornado coming right over the top of us. So it was quite loud. It was an EF2, and it touched down just behind Belton High School, and then of course it ripped through to West Adams and caused quite a bit of damage. There it is coming into the area, and that is Crossroads Park in Temple. If you know where that big softball complex park is, that's the tornado that hit us, came over the top of us. That's some of the damage. So our neighborhood looked more like this. Matter of fact, our neighbors across the street, we had to chainsaw a tree that fell so people could leave because there was no power. And then that's what happened to some of the houses. So it was a big tornado, big enough. This is actually our backyard. You can't see it, but there's actually a legacy oak tree about 20 feet away. That's how heavy these rains and winds and debris was. And then that's some of the melted hails that hit us. And so yeah, it was quite the interesting experience. So we had no power at 6:20, and here comes the rain. 6:22, I think, is when it hit us directly until Sunday morning, and then it had to go off again until Sunday evening, and I'll talk about what happened there. But it knocked off over the trees, took out transformers. We're fortunate in our street, none of the lines got taken down. On their street, their lines got taken down. So they had to come put the lines back up and fix all that, cut the trees out of the way. All of Temple was without power Wednesday night. So if you don't have the ability to deal with something like that, it was 90, 95 degrees. Humidity was 90%. I mean, it was not comfortable. So, people are like, what do we do? Where do we go? They had an RV, so I guess you just stayed in the RV. But a lot of people had to leave town, and that's what we ended up doing. But I was prepared. I had done things to the house. I had all the stuff, but it turns out there were some things I didn't think about. We were hit with 120 mile an hour straight line winds. So that means these winds go this way instead of coming down or swirling, which turned out benefited me quite a bit, actually. We couldn't see across our yard, as I showed in the picture. And so much of the mulch debris in our yard rinsed out towards the front of our property. We had mulch against the fence this thick, which I had to, over the weeks, keep shoveling and putting in the trash to get rid of it. It was quite the mess. So I was prepared, right? I had some supplemental solar. I have a hybrid solar mini split that I added to our office area. Our office area is off our house. There's a carport in between, same roof, but it's house, carport, and this office space, about 500 square feet. And so I had a solar mini split in there as well as grid feed. And then I had a solar inverter in the workshop. We'll see that. And then, of course, an open frame generator. We'll talk about that. And then I had 15-pound propane tanks, barbecue propane tanks. Those turned out to be my first fail. But again, I have a ride-on mower that has 6.3 gallons of gas if it was full, and so it was not. And then, of course, I had a hand pump to get gas out of the car. Well, it turns out you can't do that anymore. They have valves that don't allow that. So I was prepared, but some of this I never tested. So the power's out, now what? Right? I've got the Blue Eddy in the office space. I've got the hybrid in the garage. I've got 3,000 watts sitting in batteries in the garage as well. I also have this big 12,000 watt whole house generator, as well as a generator port that I had added to the house when we remodeled it. So I just had the cables plug it in. And then I had to add, everybody probably doesn't know this, but on your air conditioner, you must install what's known as a soft starter in order for the amps to not ramp up so dramatically to kill your generator. So if you want to run your air conditioner in your house on a generator, you got to install what's called a soft starter. The wind, the storm's blowing the gate back and forth. I had all the needed cables, and I had 4 of these little stupid propane tanks, which turned out to be worthless. So Wednesday night, pulled out the generator on the small propane tanks. Started right up. Turns out those 15-pound propane tanks run the generator for like 15, 20 minutes. I needed it for days. So I realized very quickly that evening, this ain't gonna work. So I went and said, all right, do I have any gas? Lawnmower was empty, gas can was empty, hand pump couldn't get it out of the car, so I'm like, I've got no gas, and I have no tanks to go get gas. So I'm like, okay, we're going to sleep the night, we'll deal with it tomorrow. So we went down to Austin, Cedar Park, over by where my daughter lived, and we got a hotel and said, you know, we're out, we're done, lock it up. Pretty much like every one of our neighbors did. And again, there was no hotels in the area, power was out, they were full, so off we went. So what worked? Let's start here. What did actually work after all this? There's an example, one of the panels, but one of my solar panels got shattered. I put them on the ground. The tornado, 120-mile winds, picked it up, flipped it over, and there's the damage to it. The other one survived, so I had 2 on a tracker, I had 2 on the ground, 1 got destroyed. These are 365 watts, so pretty big panels. They're, you know, yay wide and yay big. They're pretty heavy. And so my workshop was 100% solar, and so I had 3,000 watts of energy stored in 2 batteries in the workshop. Turned out I really needed that. Also confused the hell out of my neighbors how my lights went on and my garage opened, and everybody's like, there's no power. They forgot I had batteries with my solar. Because most people that have solar don't have batteries, right? So that's the difference between what I have and what people on the roof. So I can have needed run an extension cord from the workshop to the house, plug it into an outlet, and charge those batteries up on grid if I needed to. Because I turned off the power to the workshop. Encore wanted too much money. So I asked AI to generate me a picture of a workshop with my bad boy mower and a solar inverter. I think my wife wishes our workshop was that clean. But that's basically the setup in my workshop. And again, the garage door runs on it, all the lights, all the outlets. I can run my chop saw, I can run my small table saw, all my chargers and everything, a camera, a Wi-Fi extender, and all that stuff runs on this setup that's mounted in my garage. And again, it confused my neighbors because I opened the thing and the lights are going on. They're like, how's that working? So my first fail, the ride-on mower tank, almost empty. No gasoline to pump out of it to put into my generator. My 5-gallon tank was empty. Oh, great. I got no gasoline. Didn't really think about that one. And then so no gasoline on Wednesday night, which is why we ended up leaving. I had no way to get power going to the point where I could run the whole house and all that. And it turns out 1 gas can would not have been enough. It took me 25 gallons of gasoline to run that 12,000 watt generator for 1 day. And that was pretty much without air conditioning. So whatever you do with your home, consider the fact that you're going to use a lot of juice to run that thing. And a gallon an hour. So you need some storage. And I only had 1 can. I now have 4. They're all full. The lawnmower is currently full, so we're good. And then, of course, if it's full, then it's useful because it's got a big opening. You can drain it if need be. So that was my first major fail. I couldn't stay in the house the night it happened. So that's a double facepalm. So what else worked? The office that we have where my wife works, all the computers, all the printers, all the doodads on the desk, everything in there, our network area storage and all the stuff in there runs on the generator that's getting rained on out there in the trailer. And then also there's an EG4 solar hybrid grid as well as solar mini split air conditioner heater. So that room was actually cool because it had solar power during the day and then the Blue Eddy that's in the trailer at night. And then I had the 2 panels on the tracker, which we'll see a picture of in a minute. And so when the sun shines, it charges it up very quickly. And then if I had grid, I could charge the Blue Eddy, but there was no grid. So day 2, Thursday, after spending the night, got me some more cans, got me some gas. Now we're ready to go. My first improvement, buy 3 more cans. Gas cans, 5 gallons, so 20 total. So basically a day's worth of gas. I bought some air mattresses. Turns out one of them died in the course of our remodel, and another one got a hole in it and died because they'd been sitting in the camping gear. So I had to buy a couple of air mattresses so I could sleep in the office space because it had power with the Blue Eddy and it had air conditioning with the solar mini split. And then of course I added a generator port, and so that would allow me to then plug in the thing. But again, 4 days is a pretty long time. So now I'm loaded up with everything I need on Thursday. So back to the house I go. And now gas in hand. Turned out I did run it on propane on Wednesday, but I put the gasoline in there and I could not get the generator started. I was just puzzled. I was frustrated. 2 hours I spent on this, 2 hours. I decided to go on the roof, start checking the roof out because we got hit pretty hard. I'm blowing leaves off and I'm doing it in my head. I'm like, I get it. Propane is gas. It's a gas vapor. Gasoline, on the other hand, why your car won't start when your battery's low is it needs a higher spark to vaporize the gas to turn it into, vaporize the gasoline liquid into a gas so that it will then start and run and ignite. Well, the battery on your generators when they sit in the workshop or garage will not have an optimal charge to start on gasoline. So turns out the workshop was the thing that got me going because I needed to hook up my battery charger on solar power batteries to the battery on the generator to lift its spark up so that it would ignite the gasoline and then start the generator, and it started right up. So my solar workshop with all the battery storage, with a couple extension cords, is what actually got my generator going. So this is something to remember, is that battery capacity on your generators, either keep them on a charger all the time or be prepared to get them charged up right before you need it, if you can predict that. We thought the tornado was going to miss us and go north, but it did not. So yeah, the generator started right up after I ignited the gasoline properly, and away we went. So, I scratched my head and went, why is this not starting? I'm an engineer. What's wrong with this picture? So fail number 2. Well, it had been cloudy before the tornado. We had rain and more rain, and storms kept coming through. And so on these solar generators, I can set it to go down to a certain rate at night so that you can drain it, and then during the day you charge it back up, and then at night charge it back down. And so you do this cycle in order to use as much of the battery as you can. Because it's free energy, you might as well use it. Well, I had set it at 20%, so it was way down here, and there wasn't enough sun to bring it back up here. So my generator in my office space was low on power, so I couldn't rely on it other than keeping the office running. So that was my first fail, is I needed to slide that up to 100%, which you can do on the app on my phone and tell it that. But it's something the user has to control, so that was my bad. I just didn't even think about it. But the goal here is because I want to use as little as the grid as possible, use the free energy. But yeah, this is a drawback to doing this is there's clouds and you really need it, and it draw down, you can't charge it back up. But it did run the things I needed the power for, so it worked. And then the next day, I think that Thursday afternoon, it got really sunny and everything charged right back up. So yeah, that was another really, I didn't turn the state of charge up. Bummer. So now I'm powering up the house. So what do you do when you power up a generator in the house? You don't just turn everything on. So you turn all your breakers off, you plug this thing in, you get it running, and you slowly start turning stuff on, because if you do it too quickly and you put too many amps in your generators, they will fail. And you'll wonder, why does it keep dying? Why does it keep dying? So you have to slowly ramp up your house. Turn on little things first Don't turn on any 220 unless you absolutely have to. It turns out I never turned off my water heater, which is a hybrid water heater. So it's a heat pump water heater, so it didn't lose a lot of juice, but it was 220. But you have to slowly do this. And the first priority was 2 fridges and a freezer. Got to keep all the food good because that's a lot of food. Which in our neighborhood, surprisingly, that's pretty much what half the people were doing, is running small generators just to power fridge and freezers. They didn't have whole house solutions. And of course, you start turning on the lights, check the internet so you can start watching streaming TV or whatever. And then once that got going, I said, okay, now I can clean up. I got some basic power, I got hot water and all that's working. I got to blow the leaves off, which means I got to go through a lot of batteries, which means I need to charge them, which is where I charge them in the workshop on that solar setup. So I keep the batteries charged while this is going on, no power, all on solar. No air conditioning in the house because that was the last thing I wanted to turn on. I bought this fancy soft starter. It should run, but that wasn't a priority Thursday night because I was sleeping in the office where I had the mini split and all that. I put the guest TV out there, so I had a little apartment. That's where I lived when I was remodeling the house. I actually set a bed up in there, and so I was living in there, had a recliner and the TV. And so, I was used to doing that while I remodeled the house for 6 months. So I just went ahead and said, well, I'm going to sleep in there. It's small, it's less power. And then I just spent the night there. And then the wife stayed in Austin Thursday and said, okay, come home Friday. The house is working. We'll be good. So Friday, things now get the rest of the house fully powered. Get everything working. So time to test the air conditioner. Turned it on. Soft starter worked. Air conditioner came on. House got cool. It was awesome. The whole house was getting cool. So I'm like, all right, this is working. I could hear the generator getting bogged down when the AC came on, but it worked, right? So I was really happy. The rest of the house was working, main TV was up. I tested the internet, and I think it came up late Friday when the internet came up because we didn't get any lines torn down. Stress level finally going down because, it's nice when you have all this debris to be able to stay home and sleep in your own bed and clean it up and everything. So yeah, it's time to clean up the mess that occurred with the tornado. So fail number 3. How many people use UPSs in their house? I've got them. Yeah, Todd's got one. So I've got them on every printer, every computer setup, every hardcore electrical, my firewall, my network area storage, all the laptops, computers, monitors don't need to be. The power goes out, you're not working anyway. But I have it all so that if the power does spike, my electronics don't get fried or don't get spiked because it can kill them. Well, it turns out a open frame standard generator, these things don't like it. These things, all of them in my house were going beep, 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 and going on and off because the power was so dirty that it didn't like it. It thought there was a power outage. So, the power's good. Okay, back on. Oh, no, power's bad. Back off. And so I had to unplug everything from all the UPSs and plug them directly into the wall, running on a generator, feeding all this stuff with dirty power. And that's not good for modern day electronics. And that's called total harmonic distortion. You'll read that spec in shopping for generators. But that's something that seriously I did not consider as a part of getting a generator to run a whole house. You thought I would have known that. I did after I thought about it, but too late. I already had the new generator. All right, or it's called an inverter generator. That's what's it called. And so yeah, that was my first fail. I couldn't even use my UPSs. And so whole purpose. The fail number 4 is about 4 o'clock on Friday. The soft starter I talked about, you have to run it on generator. Well, guess what died? The soft starter. So it turns out the vendor had identified a faulty product inside the soft starter. It was warranted. They gave me a brand new one. But it doesn't help on the first day you're trying to get your house cooled down and everything, and the wife's coming home, that the air conditioning now doesn't work because there's no power and I can't run it without. I tried it. I turned the air conditioning on and the generator just died. So this little guy right here is crucial if you're running a generator in a home. Mine's a 32 amp, so I got a big unit, but if you've got 2 smaller ones, you can get 16 amp units. But those are required. You cannot run a generator and an air conditioner and be a happy camper. You can damage either one. But fortunately, I've been running most of the day, and I did have a stand-up air conditioner, which really came in handy. It was this guy. And so we have, fortunately, in one of the guest bedrooms, the window matched exactly the same window it was in one of our living room areas. So I made a little plywood vent where the exhaust could go out and the drain tube can go out, and I could blow it right on to the living room to keep us comfortable enough. And then at night, I put it in one of the guest rooms, and then I slept out in the office space on the air mattress while she slept in a bed with the Roll-A-Cool. And, that's the way it works, right? I got to sleep on the floor. And so that worked, right? I still had the TV in there, and I still had the Bluetti. So I'm functional in there, and the house is running with the television in there, and she's sleeping comfortably with the stand-up.
But you got Junebug.
Yeah, and I have Junebug, right? So Junebug slept with me, that one. So day 4, cleanup. So to give you an idea, this is what the yard has. There's all the branch debris. Their neighbors, by far, lost 70% of their front yard. You couldn't see their house. Now, you can completely see their house. I mean, they lost an immense amount of tree. So we all put them out in front of our fences, but the amount of leaf debris we had, this was 82 40-gallon bags of leaf debris. My daughter and son came out and helped us get these things done. We had to get it off the lawn. I mean, we're talking volumes of stuff. And then, even after 82 bags, I had to fill this guy with the remaining debris. So I ended up using the ride-on mower to kind of blow it into strips in the lawn. So I blew it, I got the good lawn done first and then the weedy lawn, second. And we filled that with all the remaining debris and then lined the top of this with some bags. He brought it back and we filled that with the rest of the bags. So that gives you an idea how much debris we had in our yard, right? And so the cleanup took a lot. It's nice to be able to stay in your home while you have to go through this kind of cleanup because, that's a lot of stuff. And people had piles for months, and I got smart and called a guy that I had gotten a bin from. He says, yeah, I've got one. And I got them the next day, so people are, just making piles. And it took months for the city to get around to it. And my yard was cleaned up except for these branches. The city got to those eventually. But it was nice. So about 6 o'clock on Saturday, the power comes on. Yay! Now the air conditioning can work without the soft starter. So we have air conditioning in the house, which is great. House is AC. Now I can sleep in my own bed. So this happened on Wednesday night. Saturday, I'm finally sleeping in my own bed. Solely because the soft starter died and going through that whole power up cycle. So Sunday, we woke up Sunday morning, started turning on the lights because Saturday evening when the power was out and came back on, we didn't have a lot turned on. We were just watching TV. It was later in the evening. And so we didn't really turn a lot of stuff on. Sunday morning we get up and the house was possessed. The lights were blinking, the switches were clicking. I have a smart home, so all my switches are smart, which means they can go on and off with an app or automatically based on a schedule. And so what was happening was there was a short in the electrical system. So I called Encore, they came out, fortunately they were like 45 minutes they were there, and they turned the power off. I'm like, oh man, and everybody else has got power and I don't, what the heck? Well, it turns out my house has the line going from the pole to the house, down the wall, into my power meter. Some people have it going down a pole, into the ground, over to the building, and then up into it, which is optimal. If you have that option, do it. My workshop was changed that way, but I don't have any grid in the workshop. I ran that line. Encore charged me from $30 a month up to $150, and I went, turn off the power. I got solar. Go away. I'm not paying you that much. But I had a line in the ground, but this one did not. So with all those winds shaking, what it ended up doing is it shorted out this lug right here. And if you can tell, it's shiny down here and it's not up here. When aluminum gets shorted, what happens is it gets brittle and it broke. And so that power line was basically just touching these connectors, which is what caused my short. Again, couldn't plan for this if I tried, right? But I had to go fix that. Fortunately, the Encore guy told me everything I needed. He said, go buy another box, but don't replace the whole box, because then you have to get a permit, then you have to get inspections. He says, take one of the lugs out of the new box and replace it in the old box, and you can do that yourself. Because it is just 2 bolts right here, and then the 2 clips to hold the big cables on, get the grease, put it all back together. It took me like 15 minutes to fix once I got the box. And fortunately, I went to Clean. I found the box in the Clean Home Depot, picked it up. The guy told me which models to look for. Real helpful guy. And that was a big win, because now guess what? I got another one of these sitting in the garage because I only replaced the one. I actually thought about replacing the other. I went, wait a minute, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So I left this one and I fixed that one, and then called him back out. So 5 p.m., still no power. So I pulled the generator back out. Here we go. Had lots of gasoline at this point. And so I started it up again and put the Roll-A-Cool in the window in the living room. And Encore shows up about 7 o'clock and says, yep, you're good, and turns the power back on. And finally, force had been restored to our house. So from Wednesday to Sunday, this is kind of what we went through. So again, you know, my disaster setup. So what did I have and everything? So there's our tornado at Crossroads. Again, I was just trying to reduce grid, have the ability to honkering down in the office in the event of a snowmageddon, be able to stay in the home and not go ring up a, you know, again, 25 gallons of gas at $3 a gallon. You know, that's 75 bucks. A hotel room's 120 and you got to eat out. So, you know, it's still cheaper to stay at home with all that gasoline. But anyway, the point is reduce grid use, have a place to stay, right? Also, when I travel, my wife and I travel, we can put the cooler in the, there's actually a refrigerator freezer in that trailer running on the solar generator. And we can go to a hotel. I can leave all the food and all the stuff in the trailer. It's alarmed. I can alarm it. And leave it in there and not carry it in. And it will run all night, no problem. And then when I drive down the road, it charges up. So that was the other reason of having this kind of equipment. To be able to power tools when we work out in the woods or whatever. And then again, I was preparing for Snowmageddon, never a tornado. So that was one surprise. So what's my setup? So this is what the solar trackers look like. That isn't mine, but it looks like mine, as you'll see in a second. EcoWorthy makes them. They're about $500. They hold 6 200-watt panels, which are 2-foot by 4-foot panels. So you put 6 of those on these. That's 1,200 watts. But they will track the sun from morning to dusk very efficiently. This would equivalent, you'd probably need 18 panels to do what these 6 panels do if they were just thrown on a roof. That's why when you look at someone's solar, you're like, why are there so many panels on the roof? Because they're not optimally angled, they don't move, the sun moves, and so you just need a lot more panels. But these are highly efficient. And then I use this setup to charge that Blue Eddy that's out there in the trailer. I've got the wires going through a little patch and hole in the wall, and then it plugs into the connectors, and that's what runs it. And then I have a wire that goes back. This is one of my first hacks. I just thought it was the dumbest thing in the world. This thing has a motor, actuators that move it, and a little controller box. And people will hook up another small solar panel to this. So you see this little solar panel would stick out here, and they put a battery in a little box underneath it just to power the controller on the tracker, which makes no sense to me. If you're running the wires from the tracker to your doodad, whatever your doodad is, just run a 12-volt line back, which you'll see in my setup in a second, and then don't eliminate that extra solar panel and no batteries outside. That's the most important. So that was something I hacked up, and I contacted Blue Eddy. I said, hey, can I use this cable for this? Has anybody ever done this? No, please write it up. So I did. I wrote it up, sent them pictures, they put it on their blog. And so that's the first thing I hacked, is to actually run the solar tracker from the battery system setup of the thing that the panels are actually powering. So that was kind of cool. I can, if I want, add another battery for about $1,300 to get up to 6,000 watts with this tracker. So that's how much extra sunlight I have that I'm not using. So I can do that. And they claim they're about 40% more efficient. Absolutely. Absolutely. When these panels used to sit on the ground, just facing south, leaning about 30 degrees, it would take the whole day to charge up my generator. Now it takes 12 to 1 o'clock and I get the alert, you're fully charged. So huge difference being on a tracker versus just being fixated on a ground mount or a roof or whatnot. And so yeah, pretty nice. The tornado, because it took out one of my panels, I needed to come up with a new setup for the workshop. And surprisingly, what these do in heavy winds is there's a little wind meter, a little cup meter. And so they sit at night like this, facing south, and then in the morning they go like this, and they track the sun all day. And then when they go to bed, they come back and they go like this. In heavy winds, they will actually go flat. You can set it up, you can make it go whatever direction you want, but optimally you want them to go flat. So when those 120-mile winds came across our yard, the panels were flat, and so they weren't picked up like a sail and thrown. None of my panels nor my tracker got damaged when that tornado went over us. That blew my mind. I really thought this thing was toast. And it turns out it came out completely unscathed. I like that so much, I bought a second one and put it, and now runs my workshop, which you'll see in a second. This is the Blue Eddy AC300. They make a 500. This thing's capable of running a whole house if you so wanted to. If you can put 4 of these batteries on this guy to get 12,000 watts. If you double this to get 220, 24,000 watts, you can run a small home, no problem. Or a ginormous flippin' RV, right? And so this runs everything in our office. It also now runs our mini split, because what I did is I ran an extension cord from the mini split where the grid connects to it through the same hole that the solar wires go through, and it's plugged into my Blue Eddy. So at nighttime, the air conditioning heater, we're not in there. We don't live in that space. We only work in that space. So at night, we're rarely in there. We turn the heat or air conditioning way up or the heat way down, and the Blue Eddy or the AC will run on that at nighttime. So now in the course of the tornado or another event, I have the ability of really having backup energy for the heater or air conditioner, which is really nice running it. And you can see all the plugs. Here's your 30 amp for plugging into a RV or a house. And there's a DC as well as USB and wireless charging on top. I can set my phone on it and charge as well. So these are really cool. I really like this thing. This thing, 3,000 watts, will run your 65-inch TV, I think at the time 55-inch TV, with the Apple TV and sound bars and all, had an air filter, a camera. It ran for 9 hours. I charged it up and I ran it without any input and see how long can I run my TV cluster, which is about right. It was like 310 watts. Well, it's 3,000 watts. The TV was 300 watts. That's 10 hours. I was a little over that, so 9 hours. So quite a bit of energy comes out of that one battery pretty easily. And so, yeah, it runs our DC fridge out there in the trailer. And there it is hooked up in the office. So here's our power cords that are running all the stuff. There's the cable I bought that allows me to plug it into the generator port with my generator cable. Though I will only have 110. I will not get 220 out of this. I need 2 of these to get 220. But there's the mini split plugged into it. There's one of the cameras. I actually have the iRobot plugged in here as well. And the 2 extension cords powers everything. The DC plug is what powers the tracker. But yeah, these things are quite nice. If you have an RV or a camper, I'd highly recommend looking at something like this. So here's the mini split I've been talking about. So it's a EG4 and all the parts come with it. It is a do-it-yourself setup. You can hire somebody to do it, but they make a kit that's totally something you can do yourself. Here's the 4 panels just sitting on the ground. That's 800 watts of power that powers this guy during the day. And my app will show me, I have a picture of it in a bit, will show me how much solar in and how much grid it's using. So you can expand that or whatnot. And when I move, these panels will go with me. And so I'll take that first tracker and connect it to this, and that will stay with the house when I move. And that will produce plenty of energy to basically make that office space as cool as hot as you want it. But I love these units. If you don't think you need solar, I would still recommend installing it, because you could plug the solar cables in, run an extension line out to the end of your driveway, and then set up some panels like this in the event of an event like we had. Or to supplement, like our big living room, we have a big living room, dining, kitchen space. I would love to have another one of those in there so that when we're melting, I literally could, if I wanted to, combine 2 of the trackers together on these cords, on these parallel cords. You take the input of one and it creates one output. And you can then run a lot of juice into a bigger unit and be able to power that on solar in the event like we had. So I would consider that if I ever do something like a remodel again. So yeah, and then I added the extension cord so that I can run that at night. Here's the setup in the garage, in the workshop. So it has a battery rack, and then I have 2 of these, 3,000 watts. This is a 24 volt system. This is all 12 volts. And this is a little hack I did. It's a Raspberry Pi. I have a picture of that. That turns the solar on and off so I can work on it. And that's what feeds back to the box in the storage that runs all the workshop area. So the power comes out here, goes in here, and runs back to the box. But these are all EG4s as well. You can get these at Signature Solar in Dallas. There's a plug. They should give me some money for that. Commercial for Signature Solar. But very nice. These things here, this is just a fuse box like you have in any boat, trailer, whatever. That's what's getting power from here through this connector that then is 24 volt to a relay. I have a smart house. So one of these runs the yard lights. I have yard lights that light up. They're all run on solar. And the other one runs the tracker. And so this is just a converter from 24 volt, and these 2 things take it down to 12 volt to go out to the devices. And so it's ugly, but I have cleaned this up since this picture. I actually got a slightly higher amp unit. When I put the solar tracker in, this unit couldn't take the amps of the solar tracker. I had to take a panel off, so I ended up upgrading this to a unit that took more amps in, and that allows me also to run my tools. So that's nice. Here's the Raspberry Pi over here on that side. Raspberry Pi is known in the hacking industry pretty heavily. These are just little tiny single-purpose kind of mini computers. Smart homes like Home Assistant runs on a Raspberry Pi. This thing runs a piece of software called Solar Assistant. And then this is the app that shows the PV in for the mini split, and then the grid if you're using it. And this is the app for that thing out there, which I have on my phone. Runs on Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. That shows me the status. So all this is controllable by applications. The advantage of adding this to the workshop setup is I can control when at certain times of the day or certain energy levels. If I was plugged into the grid, I can say, hey, I want the battery always up to 100%, so use the grid to charge it up if I'm not to a certain level at a certain time. I don't have grid, so I'm 100% reliant on solar, but this thing gives me all the stats, let me know how much juice, what's running, etc. It's pretty nice. Propane improvements. So I inquired about propane because I would love to be able to use propane. Turns out you need at least a 120-gallon tank for the propane company to come to you, right? That's okay. I only have the generator run. I don't have, a big-ass barbecue. My house doesn't have any propane or gas in it. It's all electric. So getting one of these tanks didn't make sense to me. One of our neighbors, a couple doors down from them, have a big propane tank because they have a propane heater for their pool, as well as they fill some smaller tanks to run their stove in their house. I didn't think this was an option for me, but if you want to do propane for a generator, just keep in mind you have to get a big one. And I'll talk about exactly what I did there in a minute. But you can also run a barbecue, of course, one of those. So I went out and bought one of these 100-pound tanks, which is about 25 gallons. And I went down to, in Belton, I went to the Ace Hardware and filled it up. I asked the guy, so what happened to you guys during the tornado? How long did you get gas and how long without gas? Of course, I already bought this thinking I was one-upping. So he filled it up. By the way, they have to be standing up. You cannot lie these down or they will get stuck open or closed and you can't ever get them to flow. So these always have to stand up. You can't ever lie them down. That was the first thing the guy taught me. But he said that when our tornado hit, people came like crazy and got propane for their RVs and their generators and whatnot. They ran out after 3 days. They didn't get propane again for a month. So if you're going to go to propane like I just did, guess what? I can run for a day and I might have to go down to Georgetown or Cedar Park to get more propane. So nice for immediate use for one day to allow me to go get gas if I need gas. But keep in mind, all the 3 places you can get propane in Belton Temple all ran out in 3 days. So that was the RV place, the Ace Hardware, and there's another place, there's an air place over in Temple area. So yeah, great idea, real flexible. Also, this thing gets heavy when it's full. So I had to buy a dolly and strap it to a dolly in order to be able to move around. Because the first time I went to use it to run a welder for my neighbor, I'm like, yeah, this is stupid. Why didn't I get a dolly? So I ended up getting a dolly. But I had to buy these special adapters to plug it into the generator. But yeah, that's something I did. So you do, if you want to run gas, consider that as well. And so here's talk about the generator. So the fact that I couldn't use my Bluetti because it was low, the generator puts out a certain type of power. This is a perfect sine wave right here. Wouldn't run my UPSs, wouldn't even, I tried it on the workshop after we got, everything was done. I'm like, will this charge that one too? Nope. The generators just don't produce this pure sine wave energy. They're just dirty. The fluctuations are there. And so you have 2 choices to make this better. You can buy a fancy power conditioner. They're like $2,500. So you basically plug it into the back and out comes good power in the front. But it's a big heavy box. That's not real practical. The other thing is get better UPS conditioners that have conditioners built into them, like servers have, big rack servers for computers have. Again, not practical because you got to lug that out with it. Or you can spend another $1,000 over the cost of a regular generator. The generator I'm about to show you is about $1,500. The new one I got was $2,500. And then that's what you get. And so this is what the power I was getting with my open frame typical generator, but this is what I needed. This is what everybody needs nowadays with all electronics. And so that's the perfect sine wave. Total THD. So you'll see a number in all the specs. THD less than 10 or whatever. That's the thing you want to pay attention to when you're buying a generator. And again, your computer equipment do not like this at all. It can actually kill them. Okay, people will turn stuff on and it will kill them. And so the dirtier the power or the weird spike at a certain time when it's powering up, not good. So you really need to take that into consideration. Everybody's got fancy electronics nowadays, even in our stoves or ovens and everything else. And so here's the generators. This is the 12,000 that I used to have. It's called an open frame for obviously the frame's open. This is not. This guy's dual fuel just like that is. This costs $1,500. This one costs $2,500. So I sold this to somebody who got it stolen off of an RV. during the tornado, oddly enough. So they bought my old one to put back on their RV so they get power when they go. And then I bought this guy. And so I have tested this. Ironically, 3 days before the tornado hit, I tested this to make sure it actually ran, because I never tested it. I had it for like a year. And I said, I really should start that, not even knowing there was a storm coming. And it powered right up on the propane. So that was pretty funny. And yes, I've tested that one because, you got to put oil in them. They don't come with oil. But yeah, that's the difference. So you do have to pay attention. There is a bigger one for $4,500, depending how much power you want. If you have 2 air conditioning units, you probably need a bigger one. But that's the difference of what they are. And so I did have to do that. So here's my actual solar trackers. That's the one that runs the office, the Blue Eddy that's out there in the trailer. Now not getting rained on. And this is the one that's connected to my workshop. This is more what they should look like, right? But they really should have 6 of the panels that I have sitting on the ground. They would fit 6 of these. These are a little wider, so I couldn't get 6 on there. The rails are only so long. This one I had to add some extensions in order to get the 3rd panel added onto it, because I had it, might as well use it. But these are really efficient. I really love these things. And there's the Raspberry Pi that set up again that runs or that controls this guy and gets powered by that guy. So the power that generates this comes out the batteries into this, out to that, and then makes this thing turn. Pretty nice. So again, same scenario with this guy is now this thing's charged up probably by 10 a.m. because I only run the garage door opener, which doesn't open all the time. I have yard lights. I have a battery charger for my 4Runner that sits in the workshop cupboard to keep the battery good. I've got power tools, camera, Wi-Fi extender, tool battery chargers. So I don't really use a lot of power in the workshop when it's just sitting there. So it charges up pretty quick. But the nice thing is I know it's always charged because in an event like I just had with the tornado, that's the thing that got my house going is the power from the workshop. And again, runs a 12 volt just like it did out there. And again, they go flat. So this is where they're getting sun about, it's probably about 11 o'clock in the morning. And so if it gets windy, they will actually rotate flat so they can tolerate the wind. And the actuator's just kind of locked down. It vibrates, trust me, it moves around, it shakes, but it's not a kite. I don't think you can see, no, you can't see the wind doodads. So yeah, that's it. And there's a soft starter. So mine worked for almost a year. Now the way, anybody here when they turn on the air conditioning, their lights kind of go broop? Everybody experience that? These will eliminate that. Because what it's doing is it's generating the amount of amps. It takes about 20 to 30 days. It figures out what your minimum running ampage is for your condenser, as well as the motor, the fan, as well as the big motor in there. And then it feeds it staggers the startup so they don't start up at the same time, and then it gives it only what it needs to start up, and then it slowly increases it to where they think that the motor needs to run. So in theory, they're supposed to save you power, but I don't notice that. But that's the only way you're running an air conditioner is to install this guy. You do have to have those. But yeah, when your lights go dim, this will solve that. So it's worth it. They're about $300. The fact that this one died, I don't know that I would recommend this one, but there's one big manufacturer. You'll see a lot of videos and stuff on Amazon if you go look for it. Very well known, but yeah, they're about $300, but absolutely needed. And then, of course, if this thing fails, you're not running the air conditioner on generator, so that's a bummer. That's where I really would have loved to have had another mini split in our living room space, just to have another spot that I could run on the generator. Because when that mini split in the offwoods would start up or run in the course, because I had to go through a test of the house before I shut it down. I turned on the oven, I turned on the stove, I turned on the only thing I couldn't run was the dryer. I turned the dryer on and the generator went, screw you, boom, died. So the dryer is the only thing I could not run in my house. Turns out the whole time I had my 220 watt hybrid heat pump water heater. It's not your typical water heater. It's got a fan in it. It's got to be vented, but it's stupid highly efficient. That thing ran the whole time. I never even thought to turn it off. And so as water heater, I turned the hot water on to see if I could hear it. Nothing. So these things are really efficient if you want to replace your water heater. Not in this presentation because it's just, but they do sell them at Home Depot and Lowe's. But yeah, I went through and turned on everything. The washer worked, the toaster oven worked, we have a convection microwave, we have an oven, we have a stove, all electric. And so I went through one by one turning things on, because when you're on generator, you're going to use a heavy piece of equipment, and then you're going to turn it off, then you'll go to the next heavy piece of equipment, turn it on. You want to make sure you're doing this with it, not, because you'll kill your generator. And everything worked in the house except the dryer and that thing when it died. So yeah, that's something that those are, be aware of when you're doing these. The vendor thought it was a faulty part. The other thing I did because of this failure is I know that one of the things that people complain about, hey, it's the compressor's spinning, but I got no cold air. It's probably this $17 piece that the air conditioner guy is going to charge you $120 or $200 to replace. So I bought one of those and replaced it while the power was out because I figured if that kind of funny cycling of power and shorting was going on, that capacitor might be fried. I don't want to take the chance and then have to deal with that. So at the time I replaced that, and now I got a brand new capacitor in there and a brand new soft starter. And everything's good. But the additional mini split, I would really love to do that. I'm not going to stay in this house very long. If I was, I would definitely install either the 220 version of this. This one does about 400 to 600 square feet, depending on how good. Our office space has 8-foot ceilings, so it could easily go 600. We have vaulted ceilings in the big room, so I would need a 220 unit, which means I would need both those trackers to run it in a storm. But it would run on the generator, no problem. These things are stupid efficient in regards to power use. Really, really low draw. So that's something I would consider everybody think about in a disaster recovery scenario is don't rely on that stupid thing that failed right there. Consider a backup plan like we had in the office, but have one in your house too. Maybe just your master bedroom, whatever. But yeah, our area is so big I would need a 220. And then both trackers. So I could also install more trackers because I do have lots of land. And so to run these if I wanted to. A manual. So I did, only because I figured I'm never going to remember this. And again, I'm a cybersecurity guy. Disaster recovery is a component of cybersecurity where we have to. Anybody experience the Google outage on Thursday? Yeah, I work for a very large financial, and our security software ran on Google, and so we couldn't get into the security software because it was offline. But yeah, disaster recovery. We had a lot of fun with that on Thursday. But yeah, one of the things I had to do is a disaster recovery plan, as we call it. But what if I needed my daughter and we were traveling in our fancy little solar-powered trailer there going to New Mexico or Colorado, and I needed her to come up and start the house. So I took pictures, which I have to update this because my heaters got recalled and I had to destroy them. And I took pictures and I drew arrows and I basically made a manual because I can tell you the stress level that you have when this happens to you. You will not remember everything, right? So this is a way for me to literally, those heaters are gone. I had to destroy them to get replacements. But this is something that's needed, so my daughter and her fiance can go get the house up and running, but also in a stressful situation, you will not remember everything. It's just a fact of life. So this allows me to literally go, okay, step, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Try to keep everything close together and leave for the next owner, it's right. Because the owner's gonna have, right, the trackers are staying, the solar in the workshop staying, the solar mini split staying. So yeah, this is gonna be very relevant for them as well. And so yeah, a manual is something, we call it a playbook, right? Step one, okay, airline pilots, when there's something going wrong, believe it or not, they get a notebook out and they literally go down the list and because they can't remember. Have you seen the inside of a cockpit? Good luck remembering all that. And so we call those playbooks. So that's the DR playbook for disaster recovery of our house. So yeah, don't underestimate that because I can tell you I already need to update it. New heaters, new generator, etc. And then where is the stuff? Dad, where's the heaters? Dad, where's the air conditioner? Right? You got to make sure that this is where it's stored. Where's the fans? All that sort of stuff. So any questions with that? That's my story, and that's how I kind of prepared, then wasn't prepared, and then basically recovered from the tornado. I'll gladly talk and answer any questions, details. Take a look at the trailer. It looks like the rain's gone, so we can pop it open. And it was fun building it. It wasn't fun actually trying to use it. But at least now, the next time it happens, hopefully, it does not happen again, I'll be much better prepared. Like I said, I now have 26 gallons of gas sitting at home.
Okay, y'all please give Michael a round of applause. So if y'all want, I'm really curious. Let's go check out this trailer he has. He can pop it open and you can see what he takes on the road whenever he has to go, right?
Yep.
Okay.
be
Hey,
here.
for the future, where can folks find you? Are you
Oh.
online?
Yeah, the copy of this presentation, oddly enough, when Katie reached out and said, hey, we're doing another one of these, I had written this prezzo as a brain dump. I wasn't actually considering giving it. But after I finished it, I sent it to a buddy of mine. He says, dude, you need to submit this to conferences. So I did submit this to one of our InfoSec conferences, last con in Austin. Be damned if they didn't accept this talk. So I'm going to talk more about the hackery side of the things I hacked, like the running of the motors through the actual device instead of batteries. And so I'll have pictures of the funny solar panels and battery, and I'll have a video to show people this makes no sense. And the Raspberry Pi, we all in our industry know what Raspberry Pis we do. We make hack stuff with it. We run all kinds of tools with them. But I'm doing that conference, and so yeah, I said I gotta talk. My buddy wants me to just talk. Why not? Maybe it is interesting to other people. I was really surprised how well prepared I was and how unprepared I was when it actually hit. So
Where can they find you?
malware. Sorry, where can they find me? Thank you. So the presentation will be posted on my website. It's called Malware Archaeology. Malware, M-A-L-W-A-R-E. Google will help spell it, archaeology. There will be a presentation link, and in there, a link will end up going to SlideShare, which I think is now Microsoft. It was LinkedIn. Microsoft bought LinkedIn, so. But the presentation in PDF form will be mounted out there, so you can go and get it there. Malwarearchaeology.com.
.com. Okay, thanks, Mike.
Yep. Open the trailer.